Good evening. If you're just joining, we'll get started right around the top of the hour at 6 o'clock with the community networking workshop on the kickoff of the 2025 Urban Water Management Plan. So we're going to be on mute for the next few minutes, come back at the top of the hour, and we'll dive into tonight's workshop. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Community Network Workshop to kick off of the 2025 SCV Water Urban Water Management Plan. My name is Kevin Strauss. I'm the communications manager here at SCV Water, and I'm here to introduce you to our consultants who are working with our outreach on this project, as well as some of the subject matter experts from the agency that are here to present and answer questions through the material as we start this process of updating the 2025 Urban Water Management Plan. As we get into some of our housekeeping here, before we really dive into the content, I do want to remind you that this is a webinar. The format is that we will present. There will be time for questions at the end. If you do have a question during tonight's webinar, or if you're watching this recording and you want to ask a question, you can use the Q&A if you're live on Zoom. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen that will pop up the questions to me. We'll go through the Q&A at the end. You can also put them in the chat. It just might be take me a little bit longer to dive through those. If you're watching this recording, you can go in. There's an email address on this page where you found it on the Urban Water Management Plan dedicated web page on SCV Water's website. There's an email address where you can reach out to this team here and ask your question and get assistance that way. Throughout tonight's presentation, there will be opportunities for participation and for giving input, soliciting input from our team to you as the participants. If you can go on your phone, or if you're watching this on a computer, go to menti.com. You can also scan the QR code from your phone. It will ask you to enter a code. You'll put in this code that's here on the screen. And as questions are asked tonight from our panelists, you'll have an opportunity to type in your response. The good thing about Menti is that this file, this PowerPoint, this presentation lives on through the future. So if you're watching this recording a week after the air date or whatever that is, you can still participate in this. You can go to Menti, you can type in the code, you'll be able to pull that up and give your input as well. And that will be captured by our team and put into our final report for the Urban Water Management Plan. So again, if you could take a moment now as we are starting to get into tonight's presentation, go to menti.com. That will be the place where you can provide direct input and direct feedback and thoughts on this plan and the materials being presented. A look through our agenda tonight, what we've got planned over the next hour. We'll start in a moment with a welcome. We've already done the welcome. We'll do some introductions of our team here at SCV Water and the team at Woodard and Curran, our consultant on this project. We'll go through an overview of what the Urban Water Management Plan is and what this update means for the agency in particular, but really Santa Clarita Valley as a whole. We'll talk about the community network and how we are outreaching with that community network. We'll look at data and networks input and how that informs and helps build this plan update over the next 7 or so, 8 months as this plan is being developed. And then we will close out the presentation. We'll talk about next steps for what this plan is. We'll talk about future upcoming workshops that we have scheduled, and then we'll dive into that Q&A. So again, those just joining us, Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom window. You can type in your questions there. That will pop up to me, and we'll read those off toward the end of the presentation. So with that, we'll start with introductions, and then we will get into the presentation. So again, myself, I'm Kevin Strauss. I'm the communications manager here at SCV Water. I'm joined tonight by Ali Al Hassan. Ali is our director of water resources at the agency. I'm also joined by Sarah Fleury, our senior water resources planner, and she is leading SCV Water's effort on this urban water management plan update. The both of them will be available for questions should there be questions directed specifically for the agency at the end of this presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Matlock of Woodard and Curran to introduce herself and her team and go into the presentation.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you everyone for your time tonight. I know it's a 6 p.m. on a Thursday, so we really appreciate all of you guys tuning in and participating and wanting to learn more about the 2025 Urban Water Management Plan. I am Melissa Matlock. I'm a project manager for Woodard and Curran, and I'm helping just make sure that this project kind of goes through and that SCV Water's urban plan meets exactly what their needs, and you as a community, it meets your needs as well as DWR, because at the end of the day, this is a document that has to go to the Department of Water Resources. And so with me here today, we have Katie Evans, and she is really our communication engagement kind of guru here and is going to be really leading a lot in terms of what your role is and how to collectively get your feedback and allow us to be able to do things and act upon them in a manner that we can. And then we also have Ariel. She is here also on our team. Our team, you see here, it's a big team. There's only going to be a couple of us on the call today, but really we are here to help and provide guidance and advise and all things, because the urban plan touches all things water, conservation, recycled water, surface water, seismic risk, things like that. So we have a big team here to really help support you through this process and support SCV in the development of a long-term planning document. So Katie, anything that you would like to add or? All right. So our kind of first thing is, we've got a little bit of a small group, so I think we can do this here, is we would love to hear who you are, who you represent, and your interest in this plan. So we'd like you to hopefully be able to come off mute or put it in the chat if you're not able to come off mute. But we want you to tell us your name and organization and kind of one question that we think is a little fun. But if you could ask one big question about SCV Water's future, what would it be? So I have a list of attendees here. I'm going to, just for organization's sake, I'm going to call you by your first name. And yeah, hopefully you can be able to come off mute or write in the chat. So let's see. We'll start with Cheryl. Cheryl, tell us your name, organization, and one big question about SCV Water's future. What would it be?
Melissa, let me interject. I'm sorry. The format of this is that all participants are muted until the end of when we do the Q&A.
Okay, perfect.
So they can definitely type into the chat. I don't believe that the Zoom will allow them to unmute themselves.
Okay. So let's have you try to put it in the chat then. Again, tell us your name, organization, and if you could ask one big question about SCV Water's future, what would it be? And as you do that, we can kind of walk through a little bit of the Urban Water Management Plan overview. What is it? If you've never heard of this term before, or what does it mean? And so happy to provide a little bit more information and background for you as we talk about what your role as a community member might be and how you might envision supporting this plan or benefiting from this plan. All right, so Urban Water Management Plan, what is it? Shorthand for those that don't know, UWMP. If you ever see that, that is Urban Water Management Plan. That's going to be the shorthand that you're going to see on the slide, the acronym. But generally what it does is it looks in the past and it looks in the future. It's going to look at how much water people, businesses, schools, landscapes are using, the type of water that they're using, from this current year, past 5 years, historical, as well as what demand could look like as your community grows, as climate change is involved, etc. So it's really going to give you a good snapshot of where your water is currently coming from. Is it groundwater, imported, recycled? How has conservation really been impacting you? And the future. So again, how these supplies might change over time, how investments might lead to additional projects, et cetera, how new state mandates might change how water use occurs. And what we have to do is look at these supplies in a couple different scenarios. A normal year, which in California we don't really have anymore. So we have kind of our drought years or our kind of extra drought years. We even have some really strong wet years. So we have to look at these under a bunch of different kind of supply scenarios. And in addition to just not just supplies, but shortages as well. So when we talk about those drought years, couple drought years, the mega drought that we've seen over the last, 25 years, there are response actions that agencies can take to try to manage water supplies during that time. So we look at that in this plan as well, your drought response actions, projects, programs, and investments that are really focusing on this keep the water flowing long term. And that's what this plan is going to kind of cover very high level here. So some questions to think about as we kind of go through here is long term, this plan will hopefully answer, do we have enough water until 2050? Growth, how do we plan for growth and climate change, right? Do we have water for now? Do we have water for if we get full build out? What's that going to look like in terms of how much water supply we have? What are the risks to our water supplies? So we can plan long term, but there's so much ups and downs that happen here that we need to kind of think about that from a more holistic picture. And then, of course, it's not water planning without a conversation around drought. So why do we and how will we stretch water when we have a dry year? So those are some of the types of questions that this planning document is going to help us answer. Why are we doing an update? We have to do it every 5 years. So you might have remembered this process. If you participated in it, it was adopted in 2021 for SCV. We have to do a 2025 update. It has to be done every 5 years. And so again, you look at it in 5-year increments out. It's it's kind of hard when you actually think about it. So many things can change over a 40-year planning period. So it's really important that over every 5 years, you get a chance to relook at what is new, what has come up, how do we adjust to that? Are things coming out the way that we planned? I'll tell you, one of the biggest things we saw with the 2020 update, none of us planned for COVID. And that kind of happened, right? There was no fortune ball that told us this was going to happen. And just like this, you get to have a chance to now update and learn from what has happened in the past and be able to forecast out into the future. And again, see how this crystal ball can help you best understand with as much data and inputs in there as possible to really build something that's cohesive and can kind of stand the test of time. So oh, sorry, go back 1 second. Thank you. Again, some of these things, they're informed by other plans, but they also inform other plans. So example, if new development comes in, there's such things that if they meet certain thresholds, water supply assessments. Do we have enough water for this development that's come here? And so this plan is going to help answer that over the long term as new developments come in. This is the guiding document that they look to make sure that there's water availability. Groundwater sustainability plans, it's a dual kind of relationship. They give us data in between their updates and we give them data in between their updates. And then for the agency perspective altogether, water supply capital investment planning. So how do you invest in your water supplies and how do you plan for water supplies? And then at the end of the day, it's also a requirement to the California Department of Water Resources, actually in water code, that we have to do this urban water management plan update. And if we want to get any state funds, which help offset costs for any projects that we're looking at, we also have to have an adopted 2025 update. Next slide. All right, some of the requirements here, these are things that just have to be in the document, so it can make the document kind of big or chunky, or sometimes you're like, why is that there? It's because the state told us to put it there. Some things like that are description of your water use by sector, description of your water quality issues that could or have been impacting your supplies, a description of all your supply sources, and evaluation of water supply reliability that is based on current but also future demands in these different types of water years: normal, multiple dry, critical dry, etc. In addition to that, those are supplies. We also look at demand. So we look at kind of what has demand been in the past by the different categories, what water use and compliance looks like under new regulations. There's demand management measures. How are we going to manage demand and water use with conservation? In a drought condition, you have water shortages. What does that plan look like, and how are you going to implement your stages to get to any type of water reductions that are needed? Let's say, example, there's a catastrophic outage of water, very short term, but you need to reduce. What does that look like in terms of a plan? And then also looking at your energy intensity of your water operations. So generally here, some of the project goals that we've come into this and worked with SCV to develop is that there's a lot of amazing work that they're doing to all of the different supplies, future reliability planning, etc. So we really want this project to really be a unifying planning vision, taking all of the excellent work that they have done and putting it together into one document that's really cohesive, and all the documents are now kind of talking the same talk and walking the same walk. We want you to be involved. We want to make sure that this plan is something that is useful for you, is representing you, is something that you as an agency here in the service area is able to really understand and appreciate and know what's going on with your water supply. At the end of the day, this is a requirement for the Department of Water Resources, so we do want to make sure that we do check that regulatory compliance box. But we also, if we have to do this plan, can we do it so we can get more out of it? Can we do it so it's something that can be a guiding document for the agency, something that has practical and implementation focus?
So this is our first opportunity for a Menti question. So if you're logged into Menti, I'll go ahead and launch that now. If you're having any trouble logging in, please do put something in the chat so that we know. I'm going to have to stop sharing and reshare. So just a moment. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing my Menti screen now. Hopefully everyone is able to jump onto this. If you need another moment, you can go to menti.com, menti.com, and it's going to ask you for a code, which is 99258409. And if somebody could put that in the chat, thank you. Okay. All right, so let's give it a try. So our first activity is we'd ask you to rank these questions by what you think is the most important. We've got a handful of questions here. They're not all of the questions that we're going to answer in the plan, but there are some sense of what we might be thinking about. So we're going to ask you if you could put the questions that you think are most important towards the top, and the ones that you think maybe are a little bit less important lower down. And certainly if you have an other, let us know, and we'll talk about that. You could put that in the chat specifically.
Katie, if I can jump in here again as a reminder, I know some folks have been joining us through this early portion, but for those who are watching this recording back online, this mentee is still available. So if you're seeing this as a recording, please don't skip over it. Feel free to go to mentee.com, use this code, and participate in this portion as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, we'll give everybody a minute to do their ranking. I will turn the light on for you. So I can see that people are active on here and it looks like you are responding. If you're having any trouble, let us know. There we go. Starting to see some answers come on in. If anybody needs some support, please put it in the chat and we will do our best to help you through this.
So I will also add, there's going to be a couple of these mentee quizzes throughout today. It's how we're going to try to keep you active and engaged throughout this process. So it's not just listening to a webinar, listening us to a talk, but we really want to make sure that we're getting feedback and that this is an engagement opportunity. So as you log in and hopefully you can join the mentee and use the code and you can do it on your cell phone if that's how you're calling in. Like those are all easy to kind of add on and do. But also this is our opportunity to hear from you. And so we want to make sure this is anonymous. You can put it in, whatever's important to you. Yeah, just try to let us know if you can't access it so we can make sure that your voice is heard here.
Great. Okay, we had everybody who was logged in had responded, but it looks like one more person just logged in. So maybe we could give it just another minute. And I will say at least one respondent chose other. So if you are that respondent, certainly feel free to add your other question to the chat. We'd love to see it there. And thanks for the 2 people who gave it a thumbs up. I hope this activity is easy to use, and we appreciate you participating.
And just as a reminder, this will be open. So as we go through kind of these questions, there'll be more questions later on. Hopefully you will feel empowered to want to add in kind of your voice, and you can always continue to go back through and add in your answers.
Yeah, and I think just in response to what we've seen so far, I certainly saw that there was already a question in the chat about growth and development, and that does seem to be the top ranking question here. Where your water comes from and how reliable it is. Certainly those are important, and you can see those are ranked pretty highly when you look at the bar versus the others. I'm not sure that this last participant is still working. So I think maybe we'll move on. Please, if you are still working on this, if you're the last one, just know that we will capture it. If you answer it, it'll be part of our report. And if you answer it later, we'll get it as well. Okay, so let me switch back to the presentation. Apologies, here we go. Okay. All right.
So just a little bit of our schedule here. So technically, the Urban Water Management Plan doesn't need to be submitted to DWR until July 1st, 2026, or by July 1st, 2026. So we are starting early. It's a couple months away, but this is a long process, including developing all and answering all those questions that you saw. There's a lot of key requirements that need to happen. And so we want to make sure that we are actively engaging you throughout this process and bringing you information that will allow you to be able to comment on it. So I'm going to work backwards a little bit here, but want to highlight the timeline for everyone. We want to make sure that this is very upfront and allowing you to understand when your opportunities are to make comment. So we have to try to submit by July 1st. So moving backwards, the board of directors actually has to adopt this at a public hearing. So the plan is to have the adoption and public hearing on June 9th, which would mean that if there's a public hearing, there's a public review process. It's typically 30 days. So we will have actually 2 public review processes and 2 public hearings, with the last one being an adoption. So we're looking at a public hearing on April 28th and your public hearing adoption on June 9th. So before each of those, there's going to be a 30-day window for you to comment. And you'll see that, and those are kind of in the orange bars at the top, there's a little gap in between there. It's so we can make changes between one comment period and the next comment period. If you make comments during that time, we will capture them. But you won't be able to see them incorporated into the document. So we're trying to be very transparent here early on to let you know this is your timing of window. And if you want to see responses, you want to see us to be able to comment and show how we're addressing your comments, then you're going to want to try to aim to make it into those 2 windows there. Just again, so you can see and we can show how we might have addressed it in the plan. So that would be public hearing 1, March 28th to April 28th. Public hearing 2, May 8th to June 9th. So though the plan's not due until July 1st, you're going to see a draft of it coming March 28th. So again, we're moving backwards here. We have 5 workshops that are planned here. This is actually our second workshop. Our first workshop was July 15th. That was with the board of directors. Oh, did we lose the slides?
We lost Katie, so if we can pop those
Oh,
up on your end, Melissa.
yes, let me pop that up. Apologies,
She's
guys.
back.
She's back. Okay, hi, Katie.
Apologies all. I'm not sure what just happened, but let me try to get us back. And I'll just ask, maybe someone else on the team also opens this presentation in the event that I disappear again. I'm so sorry about that. And are we still recording?
Yes,
Okay,
We are.
thank you.
perfect. So this is our second workshop. This is our virtual workshop, really introducing the Urban Water Management Plan to everyone and what your role in a community, especially if you want to be communicating and commenting. Our workshop 3 is October 22nd. That's going to be in person. Workshop 4 is January 15th. That's also going to be in person. And workshop 5 is going to be April 1st. That's going to be virtual. And all of the dates, informations, locations, how to sign up are all on that Urban Water Management Plan webpage that Kevin was mentioning earlier. And I believe we could probably put that also in the chat too, so everyone has access to it.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you so much for that overview and that schedule. We were hopeful that by providing you all of the workshop dates now, that'll give you some insight and help you plan ahead to hopefully continue to participate in this process along the way. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what the community network is, but before I do, we're going to go to another mentee poll. So if you could, please go back to your mentee, which I have now lost. Oh my goodness, 1 second. Okay. I'm so sorry, all. I think I'm having local internet connectivity issues. Okay, back to mentee. So let's go ahead and go to the next question. Pretty simple. How do you see yourself using this plan? In the event that the plan is complete, when we get to that point, how could you see yourself perhaps referencing this or using this plan in your day-to-day? Or how could you see yourself using the planning process that we've got in place now as being beneficial to you? There's no wrong answer. We're just looking to find out how others interact with this effort and this document.
So, as we see people hopefully filling it out, if you look at the bottom corner, we can see how many people are on the page and how many have responded. So that's what we're waiting for to see those numbers kind of increase or switch over from responses, just to make sure that, again, we can talk about any comments that come up here. But the idea is that we want to make a plan that's valuable to SCV, but also to the community. And the best way to ask the question. So that's us asking the question is how would you use the plan based on the information that you've heard about what's in it? And that will help us make sure that we can provide you what you need.
Yeah, and I certainly can appreciate the opinion that it is a little bit hard to say as the plan is not updated yet, and it's hard to know exactly what's going to be in it and what the information will show. But again, looking at it from a preliminary standpoint, as we're starting to outline exactly the work we need to do, we want to be sure we're doing our best to be responsive to your needs. That's an interesting answer. You don't plan to actually use the plan, but you want to know that the water agency has a plan. I think that's a really interesting perspective. There's some definite peace of mind, right? Knowing that your water agency is planning ahead and doing what they need to do to ensure that there's water. And then understanding supply and resources and a plan for drought. Great. I think in the interest of time, maybe I'll let people keep answering. We can always check back on this question. And certainly I do want to make sure we have time for questions at the end. So I will go ahead and move on from here. But please do answer. We will be recording all of this and putting together a report of what we found. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the community network. As you heard in the introductions, my name is Katie Evans, and my role in this project is engagement. I'm really here to try to bring the public and the community, different groups, and different entities together in a part of this planning process. So I'm going to talk through what that means a little bit. So, we've really tried to think about who's been involved in this in the past and who do we expect to be involved in the future. And we organized everybody into some categories. I want to be very clear that the categories are not set in stone. It's very, very common for somebody to be in several categories or somebody to move from one category to another, or be in a category for a little while and change to a different category later. But we do try to create categories so that our outreach is effective, right? So that, for example, when we're talking about environmental issues, right? We want to make sure that the environmental groups are there and they know that that's the focus of that meeting and they can be a part of it. And maybe that's not as interesting to the businesses and business associations, and they can come if they want to, but it's maybe not the best use of their time. Conversely, when we're talking about how water affects the economy, that might be a message that we really want to share with the businesses. And those are just some very random examples, but the intent is that we're able to use people's time wisely. We appreciate everyone coming to any and all of our meetings and workshops, and we want to make sure that when they do, that we're talking about things that matter. So this was sort of our first sweep of who had been involved in the past, who do we expect to be involved, who's generally involved in planning processes that we've done in the past. But we've also held a gaps workshop where we've started to think about who's not here. What are the missing voices? Who is not engaged in the past that we think has something to say or will have some really valuable expertise, or maybe just is impacted by this and has every right in the world to know more about it. So we're really working on developing this community network and trying to build it to make sure that when we do the plan, it's really representative of the community from many, many different aspects. And today is an example of us trying to reach out to the public and say, we want you here. We want you to be a part of this process, and we want you to be in this network and communicate with us. But really what we're trying to do here is kind of get people into a place where we're speaking their language. We're talking about the issues that they care about and they want to care about, and that we're developing our communications around that plan. So just being here today already is very exciting for us. We appreciate you being a part of this process, and it gets us the opportunity to have conversations that we think are really, really important and valuable to this process. So we're really looking at it from these different levels of community engagement for the network. And it's sort of a matter of where do people want to be on this spectrum of engagement. There are people who are happy just to be informed, want to know what you're doing, and that's enough, right? There are some who want to provide feedback and they want to be consulted in the process. They want to, be able to ask questions. They want to push back maybe, or they want to support something that they see in that effort. We have people who are what we would call involved, right? So this is a process that where the public or other community members or public agencies are sort of working through items so that we're ensuring that they understand it and that we understand what they're saying, and that can be considered in the process. We have collaboration. This tends to happen with organizations that have data. Back and forth collaboration happens a lot when we talk about, what goes in the plan or what are we putting together in the plan to do our analyses. And then we also see a lot of collaboration sort of in the planning process. What do we need to do to make sure that we're sustainable? One very simple example is conservation programs, right? We might need to collaborate with the public on developing a conservation program. We might need to ask, what kind of program do you want, or how could it work? And that could be something that gets to be a part of the long-term sustainability effort. And then empower. Empower generally is a decision-making process. And so that's when you see an opportunity to vote or approve something. And so we generally see that happening with our leadership, who then represent the voters. So just really open to this big spectrum of engagement and looking forward to engaging with the community at whatever level they want and feels comfortable, and engaging with different groups at whatever level they want and what feels comfortable. So this is my sales pitch. You're here today, so we're already off to a really good start, but I just really want to encourage everyone who's here to continue to participate in this process. We want you here. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your thoughts are. We want to be able to bounce things off you and share this information. I can tell you from some workshops previously that SCV Water's board of directors wants you here and wants you to be a part of this process. And so that benefits us. Here are some things that could benefit you. Being here gives you the opportunity to have some influence as we work through these processes and tell us what you think and share your opinion. It also forces us, right, to be transparent and accountable. So we're showing you information as we develop it, and you're able to see that. It helps us to be equitable and to include others, right? We don't want to just create this plan and make decisions in a vacuum. So, I would hope that a benefit to your participation is supporting that effort. It will enhance your water literacy. We will definitely be sharing information. You will learn more about water in the state, water in the region, and how it's being managed. You can build relationships and partnerships. There's going to be lots of other people within this process, some other agencies, some representative groups, and you'll have an opportunity to build relationships with them as they go. You can have some impact on the policies that come out of this. There's going to be, a historical record, and we'll use this plan to be legally defensible. So this is your opportunity to make sure that what we've got in there is the right stuff. And then, opportunities for education, not just on water, but on, planning in general, and capacity building opportunities to participate in processes like this, where you might learn something new, might meet someone new, might be able to enhance your own involvement in your community. So please keep coming. We really want you here, and we're glad you're here now. And we really hope that participating in this process is good for you, just like it would be good for us. So let me talk a little bit about what that means. If you're a part of the community network, what are you committed to? What's your role? So first of all, the responsibilities, what we're asking of you through this process is to provide us input and feedback, just like you did tonight, just like you're doing tonight. Let us know what you think, share concerns, help us to make sure that we're really getting to the heart of the issue, and our plan is the best it can be. We want you to engage in two-way conversations with us. We want to hear from you. We want to share with you as well. We want you to represent your community interest. So whether that's just, I'm a homeowner in the community, or I'm a long-term resident, or I'm a tenant who, doesn't get a water bill and I want to know more, or, I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Whatever community interests you have, even if it's as an individual, we want you at the table to have these conversations. We're looking to you to collaborate with us and to help build partnerships so that we can create the best plan that we can. Of course, we're asking that you respect the process and the other participants. We would certainly ask that of anyone. We ask that you track and follow up on engagement. We will be sending out some things, summaries and information like that, and then ask for your support in the future as we implement the plan. So, if we as a group of a community network and the agency and the consulting team feel that, a policy is a really important step, we would ask that, you help us support that policy as it moves into place. So we're looking for you to commit to being a part of this process, to being engaged with us, to having conversations, and to helping us, really develop an urban water management plan that is a robust planning tool for the area. We showed this on the schedule, but I did want to bring it up again. And this is also on the website. The meetings are already scheduled all the way through April. So this is when we will be asking to meet with this overview group, this community network group. Our next meeting will be in person. It'll be October 22nd. And we're really going to start talking about reliability concerns. Where are we looking at water reliability as being an issue, and how can we start to build what we call a water supply portfolio, and then how do we evaluate that? We'll also get an update at that time about the water shortage contingency plan, which is a plan that gets put into place when there is some sort of shortage, generally an emergency shortage. In January, we'll meet again. We'll talk about those portfolios that I was talking about, where we bring together water supply projects or programs to address the needs for water use. And then once we get into April, we'll really start looking at the plan itself. This April 1st meeting is going to be an overview of all the findings in the plan and the recommendations that come out of the plan. And we'll walk through the chapters and we'll tell you how to review and comment. So in this meeting, we'll really walk you through the process of looking at the document and telling us what you think about it, telling us if, in chapter 3, you saw this thing and you don't understand it, or you need some clarification on it, or you just disagree with it, or you love it. We'll talk you through that whole process as a part of that April workshop. I do want to note that after every workshop, we're going to be sending you a few things. We're going to record all of our workshops, even the in-person ones. So those will be available. You'll be able to access them online. I think we're shooting for about a week after each workshop. We're going to distribute the materials from the workshop. So if we did a presentation or anything like that, you'll get that. And then we'll also do some summaries. So we'll be emailing those out. And then we'll always have an opportunity for input. So for example, if you attend the meeting and then you sleep on it and the next day you think, man, I wish I would have said that, we'll have an opportunity for you to email us those thoughts. And if you miss the meeting and you watch the recording and you think, oh, I have a lot to share about this, we'll have that opportunity as well. We do want to facilitate that kind of engagement. Okay, next mentee poll. So let's hop over again to our mentee window. And our next question, another ranking question. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is a word cloud. So what types of information do you think are most important for us to make sure are a part of the plan? We're really, this is early stages. We're starting our work, but this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we're talking to the right people, that we're researching the right things, that we're collecting data from the right places. So if you have any thoughts on what type of information is really important to this effort, please go ahead and put it in and it will turn into a word cloud. So we'll give you a few minutes. Great. Some good answers coming in here. Development of new supply, adequate supply, water supply. Yeah, the supply is a really, really critical part of this effort. And when we talk about that portfolio development later, you'll see some of the efforts, the projects or adaptation ideas or strategies that are part of ensuring supply. And, reliability comes from having enough supply to meet the demand, which we've got there. Conservation, emergency planning, great. Groundwater health. Great. Okay, again, just being conscious of time, I am going to go ahead and keep going. Please do continue to add to this. We will be looking at it carefully and we'll be looking at it for those who weren't able to attend the meeting live as well. So please go ahead and keep adding. Okay. So Melissa, I'm going to hand it back to you to talk about data inputs.
Yeah, thank you. So we asked you a couple questions like what should be in that plan. Those are kind of data, right? So when we talk about supply, what data makes that up? So next slide. So we kind of have them in some of those categories that you guys just talked about in your chat. So water use today, there was, demand, that's customer, right? So we have to provide water use by customer type. We have to talk about water loss. There was talk about growth and development data, any planned developments that we know of, how conservation is going to impact growth. And then overall, you take kind of these different demand aspects, and it's kind of a balance. You have what you think demand's going to be, and then you have supply. And the question that the plan is do you have enough supply for demand long term? So supplies, we're looking by supply type. So that would be groundwater, that would be imported water, recycled water, any future projects that are coming on to help add supply. And then of course, water quality. Someone had mentioned that in the chat. So again, that is mentioned here because, if all said and with your supplies, groundwater sustainability is a big issue. So you can't just say, oh, all of our supplies are going to be from groundwater when maybe that's not going to be able to maintain the basin correctly, right? So there's a lot of data that feeds into these to help answer these questions of why did you use that number for your supply? Why are you using this? What about water quality? It's a very robust analysis that includes all of that. In addition to your growth, your use today, and your supplies, you now have to put in kind of that reliability aspect. That's your climate and drought scenarios. So we have to do a risk assessment on what do we think is the risk to our supplies. That's with climate, but also with seismic and other risk. I think what we're going to also see a lot of is climate change, fires, drought, etc. We have to look at it in a single dry year or very consecutive dry years, which tend to, we see a lot of impact of consecutive dry years in California and water supply and reliability. In addition to all that information, we also have to talk about the community. Again, this is why we really want the community to be a part of this conversation. We need to know population. What's the population now? What's the population in the future going to look like? Where that growth is happening? Is it single family? Is it multifamily? Is it commercial? Language and accessibility, income, density, those are all going to impact water use. And so we want to be able to understand that and build a plan that looks at all these different aspects and all the data points from this and how we can develop a plan that's really cohesive and talking to each other. And again, answering those questions that we posed earlier that's important is, do we have enough supplies? Are we reliable? The plan's going to come out and take all of this data and feed it to you in a way. And that's why we want your participation here. And part of your role in the community network is with this data, are we feeding it to you the right way? Is this understandable for you? Is this answering the question that you want? Is it spurring an additional question that we didn't think of? Those are the kind of involvement and engagement that we're hoping to get from and be able to answer through this process.
And that takes us to our final mentee question. So let me switch screen one more time. And this is another ranking question. So this time we're asking you of all the data inputs that you just saw and you just heard about, what would be most valuable for you to use in your own planning efforts? This could be your planning for your own life. It could be in the work that you do, anything. What do you think is the most valuable data to have?
And we saw while people are filling this out, there was a question in the chat. Let's see here, is how can community members use this plan for themselves, or is it just for the agency to use? So now that you hear kind of the data that's in there, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for business, for just if you're just a community member and you live here, but you work somewhere else. I mean, in reality, it's just to know, is your water supply reliable? And are you in an area that, you're going to able to be here for another 40 years because of your water supply? And so these are kind of the questions, depending on your role, depending on your business or how you interact. These are the types of things that we want you to think about as you're reviewing the data that we have, as we're talking about these questions. It's just your mindset is, if we're talking about water planning, what is important to you?
And again, I apologize for rushing us, but please do take your time answering this question. We will see it when it's complete. I do want to get through the rest of the slides and have an opportunity for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the presentation, but please do continue to answer. We will take a look at this, and we really value what you have to say in these questions and beyond. So there you go.
Okay, so I had mentioned that there's a lot of planning efforts that SCV is already undertaking, and they kind of come in these different buckets. So you have your integrated planning. These are about the portfolios and your water supply and what's been happening at the state with investments, local investments, recycled water, etc. You have your resiliency planning. Those are your water shortage contingency plans, hazard mitigation plans, reliability reports, etc. You have regional and local planning efforts. That is, well, 5 years ago, urban water management plan, right? What did we say there? How does that compare? Sustainability in the groundwater, obviously very important. So sustainability planning, recycled water feasibility. There was a question about, or a comment about water quality. PFAS implementation plans feed into this. Demand and efficiency, SCV is doing their water use efficiency strategic plan, a water demand analysis, water supply and quality. We have your annual water reports, your strategic plan, your consumer confidence reports, all of these different data plans that are developed, was developed within the last 5 years. They're all things we are looking at to help develop our plan. So it's not just what SCV develops, but also what our neighbors are developing. How are they going to rely on us? How could we rely on them? What is the state doing? How are we in our water supplies going to rely on that versus what their plan is? What is sustainable to them? What's sustainable to us, etc. So all of this data points, all of this technical evaluations is going to feed into our 2025 urban plan. And from there, we're going to get a 2025 urban plan that meets the requirements of the Department of Water Resources. At the end of the day, that is one of the requirements by water code. But what we also want to do is provide something that is going to be helpful, something that you don't have to read a 200+ page document unless you want to. You're more than welcome to. But what we also want to do is create kind of a visual executive summary. So again, those questions that we asked you, those questions you posed, those are things that we're looking at to help develop this visual executive summary for you. Something that could be like, I have this one question, I just need the answer. It's going to be there, right? That's our plan. That's our communication resource. This is also going to be, how can I use it if I'm not a planning agency and I just want to know? Something that we talked about with the board and the board of directors brought up is, as people are moving in or businesses are starting, this could be a great thing that a realtor could give someone. Like, yes, we have water, or yeah, these are the things that are important to your community about your water, etc. So those are different ways that you could use the plan or use the data. Again, could be just a confidence check, or it could be in how you operate your business. So closing, next steps, whew, we are done. Hopefully, you guys found some value in this and want to be more involved. Again, we've got 3 more of these interactive workshops planned. October 22nd is coming up. That's in person. January 15th is in person. April 1st is a virtual workshop. And then we go into our public hearings. And so we want to make sure that at this point, if you have interest in any of these topics, we hear from you early. So we can really make sure that we can address it and incorporate comments appropriately and before it gets to that kind of final review phase. So you can really see again how this planning document is shaped by you. In addition to these individual workshops, if there are certain key community groups that we should be talking to, or environmental groups, etc., a planning document we didn't mention that you think we should incorporate, let us know. So that way in this interim of these next 6 months, we can really start doing individual meetings with these key community groups and making sure that they are consulting, collaborating, informing, etc. Just all those stages that Katie had mentioned earlier, we can incorporate the right groups and make sure that this plan is really cohesive of the region and of the ideas. And so if there are any questions though, here's my contact information from Woodard and Current. Here's Sarah's contact information from SCV Water. And, we'll put more information in there as well. I think we have time for some questions. Any Q&A? We'll bring Kevin back up.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Katie, for the time. We do have a couple questions that I'm going to go through the chat. I'm going to go back to the top and work my way down. If you do have new questions that have come up, or if I ask you for some follow-up, if I'm not stating it correctly, please let me know. You can also add new questions to the Q&A box that features at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and that will pop up a list as well. In the meantime, I'm going to put my information into the chat as well. So for folks who are on this call who may have a question about SCV Water, not related to the urban water management plan, if you ever have billing questions or just what are we doing out in the street and you see a project that's going on, feel free to email me. I'm happy to connect you with the right person if that's not myself to talk to. But questions tonight, we're hoping to keep to the urban water management plan development and on that thread of what has been presented tonight. So my information is going into the chat right now, and I'll go back to the top and go through some questions. And again, feel free to put some new ones in. So starting the first question from Mr. Len Unclis, why keep building when water availability is questionable due to high political drought? Examples being the concept of having fish over people, removing dams, and also clear attempts at destroy farms within California. So I'm going to turn this one over to Sarah Flory with SCV Water. She's our, remind me your title, Sarah, I don't want to get it wrong, but in charge of that supply question.
I am the Senior Water Resources Planner. Blessed with this project for the second year, so I'm somewhat experienced at this point. And this is a really popular question, so thank you for asking it. It's a great question. One thing I think that is confusing is that the water agency actually is not responsible for development. So the city is actually responsible for all of the development planning, and they have that outlined in the One Valley, One Vision plan that they've created, which kind of says what the valley will grow to be. It hasn't been updated in a while, but ultimately they kind of have that laid out. And then when the water agency comes in, it's our responsibility to make sure that however the community develops, we are able to provide that development water supply. If we don't have enough water supply, it's our responsibility to go find that water supply to make sure that that development continues. So that's a great question. When you get to the political droughts, the environmental constraints, and all the unforeseen things that we could be facing in the future that we don't know is going to happen, that's our job to make sure that no matter what the situation is, we have a reliable water supply. And specifically, my job is to make sure that we have a lot of different options. So if we have a drought and one of our water supplies isn't available, I can turn to a different one and utilize that. We have a huge water supply portfolio. It's extremely reliable and flexible because we have so many options. So when one supply isn't there, we lean on another supply and vice versa, and we can kind of build that reliability no matter what situation we are going to be facing. And then we are also always looking at future water supplies to add to that, to just increase that flexibility, because we don't know what that future holds for us. And make sure that that answers your question.
Mr. Unclis, if that does not, if we have follow-up, we can definitely connect offline, reaching Sarah through her email or mine as well. And we can have that larger discussion about that. I do want to make sure that we get through questions tonight that we have in the chat. The next one you had brought up, Melissa and Katie, I think you touched on it, but I wanted to make sure that we had opportunity to talk about it if anybody else had more to add to it. The question from Ms. Sophia Barron about how can community members use this plan for themselves, or is it only for SCV Water? What is the benefit if you're not the water agency to having this plan out there?
I was going to add a little bit to what Melissa had said. I think there's a huge benefit in just having confidence in your water supply. There is a chapter in the urban plan which talks about catastrophic outages. And so understanding that when there is some kind of an outage or a major drought, we have you covered, and we have a plan for that to make sure that no matter what, we have your health and safety in mind, to make sure that no matter what, you have indoor water supply available, because you can't live without that. So I think there's a huge benefit in just understanding that and having confidence, because I don't think that every community can say that. We're very lucky in that sense to have a plan and have a backup when we need it. So I think that would be one of the most important things that would you could use the plan for.
I think
Thank you.
that was, I was add real quick. That was really well said, Sarah. And also, when it comes to, being a resident, et cetera, just knowing what demand management or conservation programs are available to you, right? Those are defined there all in one place. Maybe future things that they're going to be working on, how they're, in agencies complying with the state, et cetera. All of that, what the state does funnels down eventually to the customer. So being able to kind of see that in plain language, in guidance, et cetera. And again, having that confidence is also really valuable.
Next question that I see here from Ms. Cheryl Fowler, the visual executive summary that you spoke about towards the end, will that reference different chapters either by page or by title, where they could go and see more information? If we're talking about the executive summary, and then could we have those references to where they could go into more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if there's something where you're really interested in climate change, you don't have to go try to figure out where that is in a 200-page plan. We can definitely make shortcuts for you so you can easily find out where that is.
All right, I want to make sure that I've gotten all questions that have been asked in the chat. I don't see any additional in the Q&A box. If you're on the call as an attendee and you have a question and you've not been able to type your question in, but you know how to raise your hand in Zoom, and now would be the time to please do that, and I will figure out unmute you and allow you to answer that question verbally if you're not able to type that in. I'll give a second for that in case anybody would like to. In the meantime, I'm typing in, we have a project team email address if questions come to you after the fact, where you can send, and it will go to this team of individuals to get the question for you. I'm typing that into the chat. It's UWMP@scvwa.org. So it's another contact information I have, but this is our general, it's on our webpage as well for this plan, where if things come to you, comments, questions, concerns, you want to set up a meeting for a smaller group discussion, that would be the way to reach out and do that. Seeing no other questions, and in the interest of time, I do want to remind folks that this webinar has been recorded. It will be posted to the SCV Water website. I'm hoping within the next couple days, early next week at the latest, in terms of having this video portion available to view on our website. The webpage again, yourscvwater.com/UWMP for Urban Water Management Plan. I do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, taking the time. And again, if you're watching this recording back, go through the Mentee, make sure you fill out those questions if you're interested in it. It's still open. You can still participate. There'll be much more opportunity in person and online to participate at future workshops as we get closer to plan review and debate and discussion, and eventually looking forward toward implementation in the middle part of next year. So Melissa, Katie, Ariel, Sarah, thank you for being on tonight, for helping us get this going, getting the information out there. I appreciate it. And everybody listening, again, Kevin Strauss for SCV Water. If you've got any questions, reach out to us. And thank you again. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.